All right, thank you all for tuning in. My name is Lucas DeSico. I'm a PhD student at the University of Kansas under the advisement of Rob Moyle. Today I'm going to be talking about a new project that we've got going on red-tailed hawks, and I'm very excited to share some information with you. I'm going to break this talk up into broadly two sections. The first section will be more of a broad description of this project, and the second section will focus on our pilot season that we did last year. And that pilot season work was partially supported by KOS and their Student Research Fund Award, which we're very thankful for. All right, a bit of background on the project. This is a very collaborative project. It's just getting going, but we're excited about it starting to build some steam. Our author line describes that collaboration well. The main collaborators are me, Mark Robbins at University of Kansas, Bryce Robinson, who's now at Cornell University, and Brian Sullivan, who's at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And broadly, the purpose of this project is to understand the plumage variation, geographic bounds to subspecies, and kind of distribution of certain red-tailed hawk subspecies or plumage types in areas that we really have a poor understanding of those matters. These areas are primarily more remote locations, northern Canada, western Canada, and Alaska, areas where red-tailed hawks breed in really low densities, and coverage is pretty sparse. And we're taking a new approach to this, well, a different approach, where we're deploying transmitters on certain birds on the wintering grounds and seeing where they end up to nest in the summer. And that strategy, we can target certain phenotypes or plumage birds that we're really interested in seeing where they're breeding. The overall goal of all this work is to begin to provide a baseline, increase our understanding of the system overall by providing a baseline of known breeding locations linked with high-quality photos of these birds' plumage and genetic samples. This database per se is feeding directly into Bryce Robinson's PhD research. He'll be using these data immediately, and we will make all these samples available to researchers, throughout the world who are interested in this system. A bit of background on the system. Red-tailed hawks are a common North American species, and they're highly polytypic, which means there's many described geographic forms or subspecies. Here, this map depicts estimates of breeding distributions. Here in Kansas, we have the eastern borealis subspecies. Just north of us, in the northern Great Plains, is a pale critter called criders, or subspecies crideri. North of that, across the central and eastern Canadian boreal forest, is a northern subspecies named Abieticola. That's basically a more well-marked version of borealis. In the west, there's broadly Harlani in Alaska and western Canada, a coastal Allocensis subspecies, and then there's western Coelurus subspecies. Now there are two kind of characteristics of this system that complicate this matter even more. The eastern birds are broadly monomorphic, so they only have a light morph that we know of, and the western birds, Harlani and Coelurus particularly, are polymorphic, which means they have both a dark and a light morph, and even intermediate morphs. Even more complicating the system even more is the fact that it's a continental system, meaning that wherever these described subspecies come in contact, they typically form broad zones of intergradation and intermediate phenotypes. So you can see that area in northeastern British Columbia. That's a highly complex area with influence from many different subspecies and probably a whole mix of different looking phenotypes there. And these are the areas that we understand most poorly because they breed in low densities there, difficult to access. So that's kind of the target of this research broadly, is to understand these more complicated remote regions. Turns out Kansas is a wonderful place to study red-tailed hawks. Here in Kansas in the winter we have probably the most diverse, as far as geographic variation and phenotypic plumage diversity is concerned, the most diverse wintering populations of red-tailed hawks in the continent. And this is really what spurred on this research. We see all this phenomenal diversity in plumage and plumage aspect and, dark and light morphs. We can make a guess, and it's an educated guess, to where these birds are breeding and to what subspecies they should be ascribed. But really, to really start nailing this down and working forward and understanding these systems better, tracking these birds to where they're nesting is needed. So what we did last winter, this happened in our pilot season, was in March last year after we got all of our permits squared away. Our target question last year was to basically determine what these dark plumage birds, pictured here, this is Bryce holding one of these birds in question, what they might be. So in Kansas in the winter we have kind of two different phenotypes of dark birds. The Harlans, which breed in Alaska and Western Canada, and then this bird in question. And this is a relatively common phenotype here in eastern Kansas. There are two competing hypotheses to what it is. They're either dark Calurus, that western breeding subspecies that are wintering a little bit farther east than you'd expect, or they are a dark morph, previously undescribed dark morph of Abieticola, which is that northern Canadian boreal forest breeding subspecies. So our goal was to trap two of these birds, deploy transmitters on them, and see where they nested. We spent 10 days trapping birds in Kansas last March. Bryce came down and we did a lot of driving of dirt roads. We ended up capturing two of these dark phenotype birds in question and deployed two GPS GSM transmitters. These transmitters obtain very high quality location data via GPS and then transmit them over cell phone towers and networks. So they're really great transmitters for this question, with the one issue is that they go out of touch when they're out of cell phone service. So this is what we found. The two birds pictured on the right are the two birds that we deployed transmitters on, and these lines are their annual cycle. So both transmitters went on in Lawrence, close to Lawrence. We're really happy with the results. Both birds appeared to be healthy and they migrated great. Both transmitters worked exactly as predicted, and we're super happy with the data. We've got multiple points per day throughout the year, or throughout this annual cycle. They went out of touch, out of cell phone service in Alberta, and then went and bred at those locations, and then uploaded all their data in September when they came back. As we speak, one of the birds is actually in North Dakota now, and it very well could be back down in Lawrence by the time this talk goes up. So let's talk about the breeding locations. These points represent where the birds bred. Putting that into context with that distribution map that I showed earlier, turns out that they went to basically the most complicated and quite poorly understood region of North America as far as red-tailed hawk distribution and subspecies are concerned. This does not give us any clear answers, but it raises many more questions than answers, and it's very cool that these birds went to this super complicated area, because now we have genetic samples from both of these birds. We have really good photographs of all their plumage aspects, and we know how they migrated. So we're starting to unravel, piece by piece, some of the complexities of this system. However, there's lots to do, and we're excited about it. We've got ambitious plans for this coming year. We'd like to deploy more transmitters on different phenotype birds to basically test if some of our assumptions are correct or not. We'd like to deploy transmitters on light Avieticola, or that northern breeding subspecies, to see if they also go to western Canada or if they go straight north to breed. We'd like to track a more typical looking light Coelurus to see if they also go to the same area or a different area. And we're going to start supplementing this tracking information with deploying a whole lot of color bands, which will be readable in the field. So keep an eye out for those in Kansas. Farther in the future, as we develop this genetic database, we plan on doing some more population level structuring analyses, genomic work that will give us an idea of the evolutionary history and population structure in this species, and include additional tracking locations, deploy transmitters on the East Coast, etc. If you're interested in this work, check out our website. We've got a blog on here where we'll post updates on where our birds are, what we've done that season, when we're deploying color bands, photos of the birds that we're deploying transmitters on. And since transmitters are expensive and we want more of them, we've started a crowdfunding page. So if you're interested in this work and have the resources to contribute and the interest to contribute any money towards this, it would be greatly appreciated. We're accessing funding from multiple sources. But yeah, if you're interested in supporting this, it would be very appreciated. With that, I'd like to thank our collaborators. It's a really great group of people to work with. Exciting project to see really start going. I'd like to thank John Bolin and Dave Rintoul, who helped us in the field last year. And funding for this pilot season was provided by KOS, Burroughs Audubon Society, and the Hawk Migration Association of North America. With that, I thank you for your time, and I will do my best to answer any questions you guys can post to the YouTube link. Thank you.